Frank Wilson stared at the massive alien ship through the viewport of his shuttle. His hands felt sweaty on the controls. The ship hung above Earth like a metal moon, silent and threatening. "Mission Control, I'm approaching the vessel now," he said into his headset. "Copy that, Captain Wilson. Proceed with caution," came the reply from Houston. His 5-person crew sat quietly behind him. Nobody had expected to make first contact today. Their mission had been a routine check on satellites when the enormous ship appeared without warning. The alien vessel stretched longer than any human structure ever built. Its surface gleamed with a strange blue-silver light that didn't match the sunlight. No obvious weapons showed, but something about its design suggested power beyond human understanding. "What do you think they want?" asked Diane Russell, his co-pilot. Her voice remained steady, but Frank saw fear in her eyes. "Let's hope they're just saying hello," Frank replied, not believing it himself. Earth's governments had scrambled into emergency meetings. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. But in the end, everyone agreed. Someone needed to approach the visitors before they made the first move. Frank's crew had been closest, so they got the job. "Beginning broadcast on all frequencies," said Communications Officer Peter Hayes. He nodded to Frank. Frank cleared his throat. "This is Captain Frank Wilson of Earth, approaching unknown vessel. We come in peace and wish to establish dialogue." They waited. Seconds stretched into minutes. The ship remained silent. "Try again," Frank ordered. Before Peter could restart the message, a blue light suddenly engulfed their shuttle. Frank grabbed the controls, but they no longer responded. "We're caught in some kind of beam," Diane shouted, fighting her own useless controls. The shuttle accelerated toward the alien craft. Their engines shut down completely as the tractor beam pulled them forward. "Mission Control, we are being pulled toward the vessel," Frank reported, keeping his voice calm despite his racing heart. "Cannot control our approach. Will attempt communication again." Static answered him. Their communications had been cut off. "Everyone stay calm," Frank told his crew. "Remember your training." Dr. Maria Cole, their science officer, frantically recorded data on her tablet. "The energy signature is unlike anything in our physics," she reported. "It's bending space around us somehow." The shuttle approached a massive opening that appeared in the side of the alien vessel. The dark entrance swallowed them, pulling them inside a cavernous docking bay. Hundreds of smaller craft lined the walls, ships unlike any human design. With a gentle bump, their shuttle settled onto the floor of the bay. The engines remained dead. The lights inside flickered once, then stabilized. "Environmental sensors?" Frank asked. "Atmosphere outside appears breathable," replied Engineer Kyle Bennett, checking his equipment. "Temperature similar to Earth normal. No detectable toxins." Frank nodded. "Keep your emergency oxygen ready just in case." The bay doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Their shuttle, once state-of-the-art technology, now seemed tiny and primitive inside this enormous alien structure. "What now, Captain?" asked Diane. Frank unbuckled his harness and stood. "Now we wait to meet our hosts." They didn't wait long. A seam appeared in the wall across from them, widening into a doorway. 3 tall figures entered the bay, moving with strange grace despite their size. They stood at least 8 feet tall, with gray-blue skin and multiple eyes arranged around elongated heads. "This is it," Frank whispered. "First contact." Lisa Bennett, their xenolinguist, stepped forward with Frank. "I'll try to establish basic communication patterns," she said. As the aliens approached, Frank realized that humanity had just crossed a line from which there was no return. Whatever these beings wanted, Earth would never be the same again. The 3 aliens stopped 10 feet from the shuttle. The tallest one wore elaborate armor with glowing symbols. Frank guessed this was their leader. The humans exited their craft slowly, hands visible to show they carried no weapons. "I am Captain Frank Wilson of Earth," Frank said clearly, pointing to himself. "We come in peace." The lead alien raised a device to its mouth area. After a brief sound like static, words came out in perfect English. "I am Admiral Kolthas, Supreme Commander of the Xelarian Imperium's 7th Expansion Fleet." The voice sounded artificial but understandable. "Your language is simple. Our systems have already processed it." Lisa Bennett stepped forward slightly. "You can understand us. We have encountered thousands of species. Translation is routine." Admiral Kolthas replied, "Follow now. Your leaders will want to hear our terms." The humans exchanged nervous glances. Terms didn't sound promising. They followed the aliens through corridors that seemed to stretch for miles. The walls glowed with soft light from no visible source. Other aliens moved about, some glancing at the humans with what might have been curiosity or disgust. It was hard to read their expressions. They entered a large room with a circular table. Screens covered the walls, showing different views of Earth from orbit. Frank felt his stomach tighten. They had been watching for some time. "Sit," Admiral Kolthas commanded. Once seated, a holographic display appeared above the table, showing the solar system. "Your planet has been assessed and deemed valuable," the Admiral stated flatly. "The Imperium requires your resources and strategic position. You will be incorporated into our governance structure with minimal disruption if you submit." Maria whispered, "They're talking about conquest." "Earth is not available for taking," Frank said firmly. "We are an independent world." The Admiral's multiple eyes blinked in sequence. The translator device made a sound like laughter. "Sovereignty is an illusion the Imperium has dispelled across galaxies. We have incorporated 17 systems in the last cycle alone. Earth will be 18. Images appeared showing planets being mined, their surfaces transformed. Some showed alien cities being destroyed and rebuilt in Xelarian style. Lisa Bennett stood up, surprising even her crewmates. "With respect, Admiral, Earth is our home. We are a sovereign species with our own destiny." "Your bravery is noted but irrelevant," Kolthas replied. "Your technology is primitive. Your weapons would not penetrate our basic shields. The outcome is inevitable." The Admiral touched a control, and the screen showed Xelarian warships, hundreds of them, waiting beyond Mars. "This is only one battle group," he said. "Your entire planet has fewer weapons than this single fleet." Frank felt cold fear but kept his expression neutral. "What exactly do you want from Earth?" "Your water, your minerals. Your genetic diversity is also interesting. Some humans will be relocated to work in Imperium facilities. Others will remain to maintain basic functions on Earth under our supervision." "And if we refuse?" Kyle asked. Admiral Kolthas touched another control. A video played showing a planet similar to Earth. A beam from a ship struck its surface. Within minutes, cities burned and oceans boiled. "That planet also refused," the Admiral said simply. "You have 30 Earth days to prepare your leaders for our terms. We will speak directly with those who hold power." Frank stood. "I must report this to my government." "You will be returned to your surface with recording devices containing our full expectations," Kolthas said. "Choose wisely, humans. Resistance is inadvisable." As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Lisa whispered to Frank, "They've done this before." "Many times." "Yes," Frank replied quietly. "But they've never met humans before." Their shuttle was released from the alien ship, sent back toward Earth carrying a message that would shake the foundations of human civilization. Frank's shuttle landed at the United Nations Emergency Facility in Geneva. Armed guards escorted his team directly to the Security Council chambers. World leaders had gathered in person or by secure video. "Captain Wilson, please tell us what you saw," said UN Secretary General Helena Diaz, her face pale with worry. Frank stood at the podium, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "The aliens call themselves the Xelarian Imperium. They have given Earth 30 days to surrender or face destruction." Gasps and murmurs filled the room. Frank played the recordings from the meeting while military officers and politicians watched in growing horror. How can we fight them? Asked the Russian president. Their technology is clearly centuries beyond ours. Dr. Alan Foster approached the podium. The world's leading astrophysicist had been analyzing data since the alien arrival. His usually neat appearance was disheveled after days without sleep. The Xelarian technology exceeds our most advanced systems by centuries, he explained, showing slides of the alien vessels. Their energy signatures suggest weapons powerful enough to boil our oceans. Their shields could withstand our entire nuclear arsenal. Conventional resistance would be futile. Secretary of Defense Olivia Rice, a decorated veteran, slammed her fist on the table. So we simply surrender our planet, become slaves to these invaders. The room erupted in arguments. Some leaders urged immediate surrender to save lives. Others called for unified military response despite the odds. We cannot win a direct conflict, the Chinese premier stated, but perhaps we can negotiate better terms. Negotiate? Olivia scoffed. They've conquered 17 other worlds. Did any of them negotiate better terms? President Morgan of the United States stood. Ladies and gentlemen, please, we need solutions, not arguments. The room quieted. For a moment, only the sound of nervous breathing filled the air. No, came a confident voice from the back of the chamber. Heads turned to see Commander Grace Martinez step forward. Her naval uniform showed she had come directly from some operation. Despite her rumpled appearance, she moved with absolute certainty. We have something they don't expect, she said, approaching the center of the room. Commander Martinez, the Secretary General acknowledged. You have information. I have more than information, Grace replied. I have a weapon. The room fell silent again, this time with a different kind of tension. What kind of weapon could possibly help against their technology? Dr. Foster asked skeptically. One we've been developing in secret for 20 years, Grace answered. A project so classified that even the Security Council wasn't informed. Defense Secretary Rice frowned. I have no knowledge of such a project. Only 12 people on Earth know about it, Grace explained. It was deemed too dangerous for general knowledge. President Morgan leaned forward. Commander, what exactly are you talking about? Grace pulled out a small device and projected an image of what looked like an ordinary satellite. Project Prometheus, sir. A quantum-based defense system that could give us leverage. Leverage? Frank asked. Against that fleet? Grace nodded firmly. Yes, Captain. Enough leverage to make them think twice. This is highly irregular, the British Prime Minister objected. We can't pin our hopes on some secret project we know nothing about. 12 hours ago, I would have agreed, President Morgan said. But we're facing extinction. I want to know more. He turned to Grace. Commander, you have the floor. I need to show you, not tell you. Grace replied. What I'm proposing requires unanimous approval from this council. And what exactly are you proposing? Asked the Secretary General. Grace's eyes were steady as she answered. That we show the Xelarians that humans don't make good slaves. We need to send representatives to a secure facility. Immediately. Why? Frank asked. Because we're going to threaten to destroy ourselves, and them, if they don't leave our planet alone. The military helicopter landed at a remote airstrip in Colorado. Commander Grace Martinez led the small group of officials across the tarmac toward a simple metal door built into the mountainside. Armed guards checked their identities before allowing them inside. This facility doesn't officially exist, Grace explained as they entered an elevator. It was built in the 1960s as a nuclear bunker, then repurposed in the early 2000s. For what purpose? Asked Secretary General Dias. To research weapons we hoped we'd never need to use. Grace replied simply. The elevator descended for nearly 2 minutes. President Morgan checked his watch nervously. How deep are we going? 1 mile underground, Grace answered. The facility is protected by layers of rock, lead, and experimental materials that block all known forms of scanning technology. When the doors opened, they entered a long corridor lined with laboratories. Scientists in white coats looked up in surprise as the group passed. Few visitors ever came here. Project Prometheus began as a theoretical exercise, Grace explained as they walked. The question was simple but terrifying. If humanity faced extinction from an unstoppable alien force, what would be our last resort? They reached a massive vault door with multiple security systems. Grace placed her palm on a scanner, then her eye against another device. Commander Grace Martinez, Authorization Omega-73. Final Solution Protocol. The vault slowly opened with a hiss of pressurized air. Inside was a simple room with a reinforced glass chamber at its center. Inside the chamber sat an unremarkable metal device about the size of a microwave oven. "This doesn't look like much," President Morgan observed, staring at the device. "It isn't meant to," Grace replied. "What matters is what's inside." Chief Scientist John Blackwell stood beside the chamber. His thin frame and tired eyes suggested someone who had worked without proper rest for years. "What we're looking at," John explained, "is a quantum displacement catalyst. In simple terms, it creates a tear in the fabric of space-time. Like a black hole?" asked Dr. Foster, suddenly interested. "Similar, but more controlled," John nodded. "One detonation could create a localized gravity, well capable of collapsing space-time within a defined radius." "How large a radius?" Frank asked, already guessing the answer. "Variable," John replied, "but at maximum setting, approximately 3 light-minutes in diameter." Secretary Rice did the mental calculation. That would destroy Earth and a significant portion of our solar system, along with any Solarian ships in the area, Grace added quietly. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. "You're suggesting we threaten to destroy ourselves?" Secretary General Diaz asked incredulously. "And everything near us," Grace confirmed, "including their invasion fleet." "That's suicide," the British Prime Minister protested. "It's leverage," Grace countered. "The Solarians conquer worlds for their resources. What value is a destroyed planet? What glory in conquering nothing but dust?" John touched a control panel, bringing up a holographic display showing the device's internal workings. "We only have one functional prototype. The materials required are incredibly rare." "But it would work?" President Morgan asked, his voice serious. "Yes," John answered without hesitation. "It would work." Frank stepped closer to the device. "How would we deploy it?" "That's the simple part," Grace explained. "It can be activated remotely or with a timer. We would place it on the Solarian command ship during negotiations." "And if they call our bluff?" Secretary Rice asked. Grace's expression remained unchanged. "It wouldn't be a bluff." The leaders exchanged nervous glances. What Grace proposed violated every ethical principle of warfare, but they were facing an enemy that threatened not just lives, but the very existence of human civilization. "There's something else you should know," John added quietly. "The device's quantum signature is completely alien to known physics. The Solarians won't recognize it at first glance, but once they analyze it, they'll understand exactly what it can do," Grace finished, "and that we're willing to use it." 5 days before the Solarian deadline, Admiral Colthes summoned Earth's representatives to his ship. The admiral expected to receive Earth's surrender and begin planning the occupation. Instead, a small shuttle approached carrying just 3 people: Commander Grace Martinez, Dr. John Blackwell, and Frank Wilson. The shuttle docked in the same bay where Frank had first entered the massive alien vessel. As they stepped out, Solarian guards surrounded them immediately. "This is a small delegation," observed a Solarian officer. "Where are your world leaders?" "They sent us with full authority to negotiate," Grace replied calmly. "We have a response to your terms." The guards escorted them through the ship to the same meeting room Frank remembered. Admiral Colthes waited, his multiple eyes studying the humans with cold calculation. "You returned earlier than expected," the admiral noted through his translator. "Have your leaders accepted our generous offer?" Grace placed a small case on the table. "We've considered your terms," she said evenly, "and have prepared our response." The Admiral's eyes focused on the case. "You bring documents." "Something more important," Grace replied. She opened the case and removed a small holographic projector, activating it on the table. A detailed three-dimensional image appeared, showing the quantum device and its complete technical specifications. Grace let the Admiral study it without speaking. "What is this device?" Colthes finally asked, his translator unable to hide a note of curiosity. "This is Project Prometheus," Grace explained, "a quantum displacement catalyst that creates a rupture in spacetime approximately 3 light minutes in diameter. When activated, it would destroy your fleet, our planet, and everything else in that radius." The Admiral's eyes blinked in rapid sequence. "This is a deception. Your technology cannot achieve this." Dr. Blackwell stepped forward. "The equations are displayed in the technical specifications. Your scientists can verify them. The technology operates on principles of quantum destabilization that we discovered accidentally 20 years ago." Frank noticed other Xilarian officers entering the room, drawn by the unusual conversation. They whispered to each other as they studied the hologram. "You would threaten your own destruction?" Colthes asked, his multiple eyes narrowing. "If necessary," Grace confirmed without hesitation. "We're prepared to place this device on your command ship during our final meeting. If your fleet attempts to attack Earth, it will activate automatically." One of the Xilarian officers whispered urgently to the Admiral. Colthes listened, then turned back to the humans. "The quantum signatures in your device are unexpected," he admitted. "Our preliminary analysis suggests it could function as you claim." "It will," John assured him. "The math is sound." "But your actions are not logical," Colthes insisted. "You would destroy yourselves rather than join the Imperium. Even partial occupation would leave billions of your people alive." "Freedom isn't negotiable for humans," Grace replied. "Throughout our history, we've demonstrated we would rather die free than live as slaves." The Admiral's translator struggled to convey his response. "You would destroy yourselves." "If necessary," Grace confirmed again. "Your invasion leaves us no middle ground. Either you leave our solar system in peace, or nobody gets what they want." Frank studied the alien faces, trying to read their expressions. He saw confusion, perhaps even respect. "This is most unusual," Colthes finally said. "No species has ever responded this way to Imperium expansion." "Humans are unusual," Frank added. "We're stubborn that way." The Admiral rose to his full height. "I must consult with the War Council. This development requires consideration at the highest levels." "Of course," Grace nodded. "You have 5 days remaining in your original timeline. We'll await your decision." As they were escorted back to their shuttle, Frank whispered to Grace, "Do you think they believed us?" "They're analyzing the device specifications right now," Grace replied quietly. "When they realize it would work exactly as we described, they'll have to make a choice." "And if they choose wrong?" John asked. Grace's expression remained calm but determined. "Then we all find out if there's an afterlife." The Xilarian War Council gathered in the secure command center of their flagship. 23 high-ranking officers sat around a curved table, with Admiral Colthes at its head. Holographic displays showed the human device from multiple angles. "The analysis is complete," announced Strategic Overseer Vextor, an older Xilarian with battle scars across his face. "The humans speak truth. This weapon operates on principles we have theorized but never successfully implemented." "How is this possible?" asked Fleet Commander Dresnok. "Their civilization is primitive. They've barely left their own planet. Perhaps not as primitive as we assessed," Vextor replied. "Our initial scans focused on their visible technology, their weapons. We did not look deeply enough at their theoretical research." Colthes studied the rotating model of the quantum device. "What would be the exact effect if activated?" "Total destruction within the specified radius," Vextor confirmed. Its activation would indeed destroy both our fleet and their world. The quantum cascade would be impossible to contain once initiated. Admiral Kolthes paced the chamber, his ceremonial armor clicking with each step. They would not use it. No species chooses extinction. You are incorrect, countered cultural analyst Mirazine, rising from her seat. Unlike the military officers, she wore simple civilian clothing. Our studies of human history reveal a species that consistently values freedom above survival. She activated a new display showing scenes from Earth's history, ancient battles, revolutions, resistance movements. Their literature, their religions, their wars, all demonstrate this principle, she continued. They have thousands of stories celebrating individuals who chose death over submission. Their historical heroes are those who defied superior forces. Primitive emotional responses, scoffed Commander Dresnok. Their leaders will be more rational. Their leaders are chosen precisely because they embody these values. Mirazine insisted. I have studied 17 species before conquest. None have displayed this particular characteristic so consistently. The council fell silent, considering her words. Furthermore, she added, they have demonstrated remarkable technological development in merely 3 centuries of industrialization. Their adaptive capacity exceeds any species we have encountered. Vextor nodded in agreement. The quantum device itself proves this point. It took our scientists 7 centuries to develop similar theoretical models. They achieved it in decades. So what do you propose? Kolthes asked, his patience wearing thin. That we simply abandon a valuable world because of a threat. I propose we consider the long-term implications, Mirazine replied calmly. If humans can develop this technology in their current state, what might they achieve in a century? In 5 centuries? You suggest they could become rivals to the Imperium. Dresnok laughed. I suggest they could become valuable allies instead of conquered subjects, she corrected. Their creativity and resilience could serve the Imperium better through cooperation than subjugation. Kolthes returned to his seat, thinking deeply. The humans have introduced a variable we have not encountered before. Their threat creates a scenario where conquest has no value. Precisely, Mirazine nodded. If we force them to activate their device, we lose ships, resources, and gain nothing. If we destroy them from a distance, we lose the planet's resources. Only by withdrawing do we preserve our forces and the possibility of future interaction. Vextor studied the battle projections. The loss of this fleet would set back our expansion timeline by 7 cycles. The High Command would not be pleased. And what would the High Command say about the loss of both the fleet and the target world? Kolthes asked pointedly. The council members exchanged glances. None wished to deliver such news to their superiors. There is wisdom in patience, Mirazine suggested. We could withdraw, observe their development from a distance, and reassess in a few decades. Admiral Kolthes sat in silence for a long moment, weighing his options. Finally, he looked up at the waiting council. Prepare withdrawal orders, he commanded. The 7th Fleet will disengage from this system. And what reason shall we give the High Command? Asked Dresnok. Kolthes' eyes blinked in sequence. We will tell them the truth. We have discovered a species unlike any we have encountered before, one that may eventually be more valuable as an ally than as a conquest. 3 days before their ultimatum expired, the Solarian fleet began to move. Tracking stations around Earth detected the massive ships changing position, shifting out of their perfect formation above the planet. They're leaving, reported the technician at NASA's main control room. The smaller vessels are rejoining the main fleet. In the White House Situation Room, President Morgan watched the screens with Grace Martinez and Frank Wilson at his side. The room was tense with anticipation. Are they repositioning for attack? The president asked. No, sir, the NASA director replied over the video link. They appear to be moving away from Earth completely, speed increasing. They're heading out of the solar system. A collective sigh of relief swept through the room, but Grace remained cautious. Wait for confirmation. This could be a tactical move. Hours passed as the fleet continued moving away from Earth. No messages came from the aliens. Finally, as the last ship crossed beyond lunar orbit, a single transmission arrived at UN headquarters. The Xelarian Imperium recognizes Earth as a sovereign world and withdraws all territorial claims. We propose instead a non-interference pact and potential future cultural exchange at humanity's discretion. The message was broadcast to all nations simultaneously. Around the world, celebrations erupted as people who had lived under the shadow of invasion for a month finally allowed themselves to hope. In the Situation Room, President Morgan read the message twice before looking up at his advisors. They're really leaving. They are, Grace confirmed, watching the tracking data. Long-range sensors show them preparing for faster-than-light travel. Why? Asked Secretary Reyes. Why would they just leave? Frank smiled slightly. Because we gave them no other logical choice. Fight and lose their fleet, or leave and preserve their forces. As the massive ships slipped into hyperspace, leaving Earth's skies clear once more, Commander Martinez stood beside President Morgan watching the main screen. We did it, the President said quietly, without firing a shot. Grace nodded, watching the fleet disappear from tracking systems. We showed them something they've never encountered before. Our weapon? No, sir, she replied. Our willingness to use it. In all their conquests, they've never met a species who valued freedom more than life itself. The President looked thoughtful. Do you think they'll return? Perhaps, Grace answered honestly. But next time, it won't be as conquerors. They've learned what we've always known, that humans make terrible slaves, but potentially valuable allies. 2 days later, the UN Security Council met to discuss next steps. The Project Prometheus device had been returned to its secure facility, but its existence was now known to all major world powers. What do we do with this knowledge? Asked the Secretary General. We've developed something that should never be used. But having it saved us all, Frank pointed out. Dr. Blackwell cleared his throat. The quantum principles behind the device could be adapted for peaceful purposes. Clean energy, space travel, medical applications, and weapons, Secretary Rice added bluntly. Yes, Grace acknowledged. But now we know we're not alone in the universe, and not everyone out there is friendly. The Council voted unanimously to create an international research team to study the technology, with strict oversight from all nations. 6 months later, Frank Wilson stood at the observation deck of the newly constructed Earth Defense Headquarters. The facility housed both diplomatic and military operations focused on space. Captain Wilson, Grace called from the doorway. The President is ready for your report on the Deep Space Monitoring Network. Frank nodded, taking one last look at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Xelarians were telling others about the small blue planet that had stopped their unstoppable empire. As Earth celebrated its unexpected victory, somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars, the Xelarian High Command added a new classification to their galactic database. Earth, approach with caution. Negotiate with respect. Frank smiled to himself. It wasn't the last Earth would see of the Xelarians or other alien civilizations. But next time, humanity would be ready, not just with weapons, but with the unbreakable spirit that had saved them this time. The end was really just the beginning.